6:40, and the only attendee I see in the waiting room is Dick Malcolm. So Dick, if you have any citizens' comments, raise your hands and we will give you permission to speak. If not, I'm going to move forward with the other items on the agenda. All right. So I want to make sure I'm not skipping anything. All right, so item 1.3, me again, is approval of professional agreement with Horsley Witten Group for the MBTA Communities Technical Assistance. So as everybody is keenly aware, the MBTA Communities Act requires that the town of Dover, as in a small adjacent community, become compliant by the December 31st, 2025. Did I get that right?
Yes.
So in order, the town, like many other towns, we don't have the internal expertise to ensure that we can be to assist us with becoming compliant. So we need to go out and hire some consultants to help us with the public comment, to help us explain to the citizens of Dover exactly how the MBTA's Community Act may impact Dover, and to make a recommendation of where we may decide to put an overlay district. So in order to get all that work done, the planning board, who has taken the lead on this, vetted a couple of consulting firms and would like to hire Horsley Witten Group. The total cost of those services are $9,765, and they will help us finalize the MBTA community's zoning documents and also help finalize some of the community outreach and communications and explanations on what it is, how it might impact Dover. Again, with the MBTA Communities Act, we're going to have a special town meeting. The first special town meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, is October sometime. And then in the event that it doesn't pass, we have another town meeting, or another date for a town meeting, I believe in November or December.
You're
But
generally right. I'm trying to quickly pull up the dates. I can't
right,
find
right.
fast enough,
So
but
right. So there's a lot of work ahead of the planning board. A lot of work has been done. There is a page on the website, but as soon as we complete this last piece of the pulling together the technical details, we will go into full mode of getting the information out to the town, having information sessions and answering questions.
And there's a lot of technical and legal issues that surround this, and it is an unrealistic ask to have our community deal with it. And so this brings us the ability to do this well. And
Right.
so,
Right. And I mean, being a small adjacent community also gives us the advantage of seeing, what worked in some towns and what didn't work. And hopefully, we understand where communities have concerns. And so hopefully, with the help of the consultants looking to see what other towns have done, we will be able to effectively communicate how this may impact the town of Dover.
well said.
So if there are no questions, I took a look at the contract for professional services. It looked fine to me.
I also looked at it. I have no questions on it.
All right. So
just for background, they did use the standard template, which has already been approved by town council. So we didn't need an additional review. And then I did pull up the date, so just so it's on the record,
Thank you.
the first meeting is September 29th.
I didn't even get the month right.
That's it. We were close though. End of September, close, you know. And the second meeting, if needed, is November 17th.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move to approve the professional services agreement with Horsley Witten Group for MBTA Communities Technical Assistance for the town of Dover, Mass. In the amount of $9,765.
Second,
All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
I, Dave Haviland.
All right, so the next item of business was item 1.4, which was going to be a discussion and vote regarding the approval of the community center building project change orders. We received these change orders and had some additional questions. And since this meeting wasn't really a scheduled meeting, the building committee is going to go back and answer some of those questions, and we will vote on these at our next meeting.
You just put that in there so you can get through your meeting on time.
Having started 17 minutes late. Not that anybody is,
Counting.
right. All right, so finally people can stop listening to me, and the next item is update on fiscal year 25 goals and priorities. And I believe, Mike, you are going to take over here.
So I will take over. We actually skipped a couple.
Oh, we skipped the budget.
And we skipped town meeting warrant articles.
Oh, wow. How did I do that? 1-5. Oh.
That tab's just not working for you today.
No, it isn't. Okay, so we're going to go back to item 1.5, which is the Board of Selectmen orders of the town meeting warrants. Do we still have the same? I see we still have the same number of warrants.
Yeah, so you know, we won't have a formal ordering tonight because I'm still working with Nina. We were hoping to have something hot off the presses before your meeting, but we didn't quite get there. So what's in your packet is generally the same thing you saw at your last meeting, with the exception of the Board of Fire Engineers formally pulled off their article for the strong fire chief. So we have physically removed that. You will see, even though we anticipate what would be 26, right after 25 under the zoning planning, is still the tree preservation bylaw. The planning board has indicated that will be removed, but they've not formally voted. So it is still on there, but that will be taken off. The one piece that's up in the air, and we had a little bit of this conversation previously, is revolving around, no pun intended, the revolving funds.
Right.
So working with Nina and hearing the feedback from the board and particularly the town moderator, we're trying to find a way to do this in the simplest way as possible. So right now, the way you see the warrant, Article 3 is to authorize amounts for our pre-existing revolving funds. And then articles potentially starting at 15 through, depending on what we have to do working with Nina, 18, or it could actually be 20, are a combination of new revolving funds and revolving funds that we would like to alter the structure. So just to give you an example, the Board of Health has what looks like four separate revolving funds, and they're divided into the different sort of inspections they do. They no longer need those four separate revolving funds because they have a full-time health director that does most of that work. So what they're looking to do is consolidate that into just one more general, smaller fund. Our hope was we could just do that as part of the normal revolving fund, but the more we dig in, it looks like we are going to need a separate article to do that. So we don't have final answers on that, but what Nina has said is that we will find a way either to, try to condense them, to as little as possible, and or two, if the town moderator is on board, which he had indicated he would be, we can make them as part of a consent agenda. So even if there are multiple articles, They are all fairly straightforward. They're not impacting the annual budget dollars. And so I think there's an appetite to kind of bake them all together and vote on them in one kind of packet. So we're still working through that. So what I would recommend, or what my plan to share with you is, I'll continue to work on that with Nina. Once I'm done, I'd like to meet with Jim and Kate to review what we've come up with, kind of what our plan would be, and then at your next meeting, we'll hopefully come back to you with a final order of articles that would turn into the actual warrant. The one thing we want to be careful on, as I know historically, Article 4 is always operating, Article 5 is capital. One suggestion you had is to move Article 3, revolving funds, later in the meeting and kind of group it with all of the other ones, but that would bump the order and that would throw it off. So I'll talk to Jim about that. Maybe we could move a different article to 3.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, just to keep
Right.
our numbering system, because again, there's no requirement, but it is, precedent here, and historically people understand when you say Article 4, Article 5, people knows what that means here. So our plan will be to keep that the same.
Right, and I think it does make sense to group all the revolving funds articles together. And I mean, the one thing I would suggest that we do is, if we do that, is just remind citizens, like 2 minutes or less, that a revolving fund really has no impact on the budget. I think it's important for them to understand that it's fees that get paid for that specific purpose that then get used to pay the individuals performing the inspection or the
Exactly.
work.
Right. Exactly.
I agree, Robin. I mean, 2 minutes and we could get.
I don't even think
Hopefully-
you need 2 minutes. I think you just have to remind people this has no, because it seems like a lot. I know somebody will go there and add up all the numbers, and so
Right.
it's important just to say, hey, guys.
But if it's just done as a consent agenda and explain with 2 minutes up front on
Right.
all of them, and then say, and we're doing this as a consent agenda
Right.
versus having to vote 6 times, I think town meeting will say, great, let's go.
Right.
Right.
It will save a huge amount of time. It
Yes.
really will. Because it's just the time that it takes to vote on each of the items.
Correct.
Correct.
Only half an hour right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Even without discussion, it's just the formality of it.
Correct.
Okay, maybe 20 minutes.
Well, that'd be great, because if we can get the number of warrants or number of votes under 30, it becomes doable in one evening.
Correct. So even if perhaps we have to add back in a couple of the revolving funds, we could go up as high as 35 individual articles. But to your point, David, we can group them. There'll be 30 or less votes taken, which is what we really, time-wise, is what we care about.
Correct.
Right.
The other thing I'll just mention, and this does kind of bleed into our next, I guess, open budget discussion, is that open hearing is scheduled for March 17th, which is quickly approaching.
St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, it is. So wear your green. And Chris just put together a all but final draft of a mailer. So you may recall last year was the first year we did a nice mailer for open hearing. It included some information and history on town meeting and how people can get involved. It was very well received, so we'd like to do that again. We did send the draft to the warrant committee chairs to give a quick look. And as soon as they get their feedback to us, we'll plan on finishing that and getting it to the printer and then out into people's homes. So
That's great. That was really, really good.
Yeah.
And I'm
very well
assuming we'll put the mailer on the website as well.
Yes. Yep. Mail will be one part of that puzzle. We'll use social media, our newsletter, website, all our channels.
I can't remember, did we do like a special edition of the digital newsletter focused on town meeting?
I'll look to Chris for that. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
we ended up not doing it, but we did take a heavy focus on town meeting stuff. I think, in conjunction with this mailer, kind of thinking of this in 2 parts. lead up to open hearing, and then after open hearing, lead up to town meeting. So we're going to make all information that we have available through any channel that we have over the course of the months.
Right. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
And then just while we're on mailing, and again, part of the next item too, we will again, our warrant when we mail it will be the full size, which again was also a change that was well received last year.
Eight
And
and a
the
half
warrant,
by 11.
yes, right. So you can actually read it. And the same is the warrant committee has asked us to design, as we work through the design of the blue book, to look at making that and working with the printer to make that an 8.5 by 11 as well, which again would be much more legible and easier to read, particularly the tables and things like that. So, we're hopeful that'll be a positive, well-received change as well as that goes up this year.
Right. I mean, it will be great if the tables can be, if everything can be portrait and you're not kind of turning it around. And it's also going to be thinner because I'm assuming you're going to be able to put more on each piece of paper.
Correct. Exactly.
No, that will be great. I know it's different, but it will be really good.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It is different, but given the feedback we received when we did the warrant that way, it was just overwhelmingly positive. People were so appreciative. We think people will feel the same once they get the blue book in their hand and see the difference.
Right. Okay.
Well, it's still going to be blue. It's still going to have the same information. It's just people will be able to read it easier.
Right.
Correct.
So, I mean,
just be bigger. Right.
Just be bigger. Right.
So,
and that's all specifically in the warrant, and then that does kind of roll into the budget discussion.
Right. So why don't we just move to item 1.6?
We don't have anything, a formal presentation tonight, but Dave, I thought a great suggestion to add this just as a reoccurring agenda item so that we can just kind of, be able to talk about it in open session. If there's any questions, just to kind of give updates. So the update I just wanted to give is that the informal working group had a chance to meet, which was great. And we've got some work to do behind the scenes, which we hope to be finishing up between this week and next. And then we'll look to pull together the group again, probably the last week in February, so that we can, finalize our model and as, really kind of put the finishing touches on things as we get into open hearing.
Right. And I think, it was really good having the first version of the budget, even though it was somewhat scary, but completely pulled together. What we're really trying to work on now is to find a way to do a simple waterfall of the debt so that we can show citizens what the debt levels are, how they fall off, and what the impact of potentially adding capital via debt will have on that total debt coverage for the town, so to speak. So I thought it might be easier for people or for citizens to understand that if we could put together this simple waterfall chart. So I've been working a little bit with Carl. I mean, this goes to the selectmen updates, but since this is the budget, I think it makes sense to discuss it here. But, the warrant committee has been very, very much engaged in the whole process. And they have been really receptive to learning about the budget. And so the last warrant committee meeting, we did a little overview of cash reserves, the selectmen's, what out policies, and I'll use that word loosely, were. And I think that really was a catalyst for great conversation. And I think the presentation was well received. It was really just a high level Cash Reserves 101 and Dover's philosophy or our policies. So, you know, going forward as we begin to pull together the town meeting spot on the website, it may be a good thing. You know, maybe we clean it up a little bit and put it on the website just so citizens can educate themselves, because I do think it's not an easy concept. You know, these cash reserves and the requirements do impact our bond rating, which is one of the things that is important to us to maintain that AAA rating. So I think it's important for citizens to understand what that means relative to our budget, you know, how much cash reserves we need to have. But, you know, it's been a really engaged warrant committee, so they've been great to work with.
I'd second that. Are you all set, Robin? Because I have like 3 or 4 very disparate, oddball comments.
Sure, go for it.
So the first one is really not finance related, but the question got asked of me with the open meeting law allowing us on Zoom. Is that set to expire?
So you're stealing one of my town administrator updates. But,
sorry, Mike. Well, go ahead.
No, I'll talk about it now. So yes. So the existing law that allows virtual public meetings is set to expire on March 31st. Those were the temporary provisions that were first implemented way back in March of 2020, and they've been extended a few times, but they've yet to be made permanent. However, Governor Healy has put forth some legislation to permanently enable our ability to have remote meetings. So we've been staying in tune with our Massachusetts Municipal Association, who's really pushing for that. You know, there's some question of if the act that she filed, because it includes a number of other municipal related things, will be in a place to pass by then or not. And if not, there's some additional bills that have been filed for just extending the remote open meeting law piece as well. So yes, it is set to expire, but we're very hopeful and have assurances from the state that they intend to extend that, if not, make it permanent.
Okay, I didn't know how to answer the question because I didn't know it myself. So
yeah.
Okay, thank you. The second one, so the town right now, there was a lot of talk about not mailing out the blue book. But it sounds like we're getting it into a format that could be a little thinner and a little less expensive. So I'm assuming that is still going to be printed and mailed out to everyone.
So that's our understanding right now, that the warrant committee did inquire, and it is true the blue book is not required to be mailed, only the warrant is actually required to be mailed. However, yes, our intention was this year to change the formatting. We do believe that'll bring down the printing costs in particular, because it's not as complicated to print, and it's easier for the printer to set up. So we'll see some savings there. But I do think that is still something they want to consider in future years of whether or not the blue book continues to get mailed or not.
Okay.
Right, and you know, warrant, their discussion was change is hard. You don't want to do it all at once. So let's move to this new format, which is also going to be a little easier to create a PDF of. And, you know, we could have the PDF version on the website as well, and then maybe gradually, you know, which was something that they did with the town report. You know, for the most part, people like the town report not getting mailed to them. They like the electronic version. However, there are citizens in Dover who feel as though not mailing it to every household has really not serving a benefit to the town. So, you know, it's hard to find the right balance. You know, we do have printed copies and they are made available. So, maybe there's a way to have people sign up if they want a printed copy, and we can mail those out. We
You
do,
anticipated my follow-up question because I
right,
think we had the same citizen talk to us on the town
right,
reports and whether or not those should get mailed.
right. And my hope is, maybe I'm really naive, but my hope is once the community center opens, if if it's going to work the way I'm hoping it works, we can have some of those things there and maybe even sign up sheets over there. So if people, if you're waiting for somebody, or if you're just hanging out there and playing a game, and maybe you'll decide, well, I'd really like to have the hard copy of it. And there will be hard copies available there in the areas where you can read. So, unfortunately, not everybody likes to get their information the same way. And we need to try and make sure that we get information to people the way they like it.
I just don't want to see a whole bunch of trees used to be literally pitched right in the trash.
Right.
And unfortunately, that happens with the Blue Book mailing. And to go to the town report as well, it seemed to me to be exorbitantly expensive for people to then turn around and just hopefully recycle it. All
Right.
right.
And just to be clear, in case other people ask, as I understand it, we used to mail the annual report, but it was actually a town meeting vote to amend our bylaw to no longer mail it for all the reasons you're talking about.
Right.
It
Right.
does make sense.
Right. And, we still, I think we still have copies that nobody picks up.
Oh yeah, we have a lot of
So we
extra.
still overprint. Yeah.
Right.
Well, to your point, Robin, if X number of those were to go to the community center for reading there and then have a stack that people can take if they want one.
Right.
So certainly there's plenty of opportunity to get it, but right now a citizen would have to go down to the townhouse and ask for a copy.
Right.
Right.
So
It's just another avenue to get it. I just think the community center is going to help us with some of these things, because my belief is it's going to be very well used.
So the next one is a massive budgetary relief that everyone needs to know about. I have not accepted my selectmen's compensation for this year because I couldn't find the paperwork to put in for it. So I'm like, help. And I just waved it off. So that somewhere between 150 and 175 prorated is going back into free cash. So I just
Well,
want
you've balanced the budget. Thank you,
it's
Dave.
just
Thank
right
you,
there.
Dave.
So
I should do the same. Mine's 200.
yeah, there you go. So all kidding aside, when you were giving your presentation on free cash, Robin, you mentioned that the bond rating agencies prefer to have a free cash and or reserve fund in that 10 to 15% range.
Right.
And recently, our policy was lowered to 8%.
Correct.
And
Well, our policy was set at 8%. We never had a policy before.
okay.
The target was to bring it down to 8%.
I guess the conservative finance person in me is wanting to weigh in here that if the bond underwriters want us to have between 10 and 15, I say that our goal should be 12 and a half, right in the middle. So that if we're a little over, a little under, we still have wiggle room, but it's appropriate for what they're seeing. And I don't know how we would go about amending that policy. Assuming you agree and the warrant committee agrees, but that's how it was set last time, wasn't it? It was the Board of Selectmen
Right.
warrant committee.
Right. Right, so we had a working group. So what I would suggest is let's get through balancing the budget. And then also when the treasurer starts, it will be, a great way to maybe pull together a small working group, kind of look at some of the policies and then make recommendations for changes. You're certainly not going to get any pushback from me to move it from 8 to 12.5%. I was always very uncomfortable with that lower end. And we can just confirm that the information that I found, which was averaging the bond agency's rate, the requirements or recommendations is correct. And I think, the town treasurer should be able to help us with that. And then I say we just vote. There may be some other policies we want to tweak. It's sort of a best practice to maybe once a year, just review our policies, see if there are any changes we want to make given the economic environment, and maybe, and then present those at one of these meetings and vote on them. Because policies should reflect the current economic climate. So,
Well, it's also in the economic reality. I mean, if our policy goal is 8% and we come up 2% shy, and all of a sudden our bond rating gets in question, that makes no sense to me whatsoever. So,
right,
all right, I agree with you that the timing can certainly wait, but I just wanted to find out what the process was
right.
on how we got where we are.
Right.
Um,
So the process, how we got where we are, just as background, we had the Department of Revenue come in and sort of review all of our policies. It hadn't been done in maybe 15, 20 years. And based upon that review, we put together or updated those policies. And then I believe we voted on them. But it would, I think it's an excellent idea to look them over and work with Chris and the new treasurer and the town accountant, come up with recommendations of policies that we think should be changed, and then make a presentation at one of our meetings.
Great. Well, that I agree that after budget season's over, maybe we can take that up then. But
Right.
thank you for the background, because I was just wanted to be able to talk about it.
No, it's a great, I think, it's worth talking about.
So then the final one is Dawn, who has so much knowledge that I can't keep up with her. It's amazing when she comes in. It's like drinking from a fire hose when Dawn presents. But she did have a question for us, and that was whether or not we want to rework how we present the budget with the special ed and regular ed. And I was kind of lukewarm. I'm going back to my school committee days. Robin, you talked about how there's the handshake agreement between the school committee and the warrant committee and the board of selectmen. That was in place back when I was on school committee, and we were always of the ilk of, okay, speds over here, regular eds here, and just tell people what's going on and why. And the town has supported that. So I was a little bit, I don't know, lukewarm is the only word I can come up with. But today, I don't know if you guys had a chance to read the Globe, but evidently the US government has delivered to the Commonwealth 10 deficiencies on how we process the federal aid to Massachusetts regarding SPED. And I now am very concerned that this might be, for lack of a better word, retribution from a red federal government to a blue state government, and that funding may not be forthcoming. So we need to be very careful about how we present, and whether or not this is the year to try and change something, I don't know. But that there was another article in the Globe talking about education in the state budget as well. So it just put two caution flags up in the back of my brain, and I wanted to just talk about it here that um, before we make a change, we really need to think it through vis-a-vis what is going on way above our pay grade. But everything flows downhill. The federal government pays the state government, and the state government pays the town government. And yeah,
Right. So just as a reminder, this decision, we told the school committee we would discuss it at our last meeting in February. And what I wanted to do was to ask Dawn to put together a schedule to show what she is thinking about because it's a timing thing. And we can ask her to also put together the schedule to demonstrate what the impact would be if the funding didn't happen the way we expect it to happen the following year. And also maybe they could just give us an update of how much of Dover's funding actually comes from federal government funding through the state. Because a lot of the funding dollars are for meals and food stamps and a bunch of different things. And I don't, because there was an article in the Boston Globe also that sort of was telling you what the composition of that was. So I was actually gonna ask Dawn if maybe she could come to our meeting and just because I'm sure all the business managers and school superintendents, they're talking about this. Because
yes.
I can tell you from my line of business, the universities and hospitals in Massachusetts have been annihilated by the NIH grant cuts or
Agreed.
potential cuts. Nobody knows how much of this is right. Yeah.
Well,
So,
it's well said. My only point is the notes of caution, because if what we think is going to happen is disrupted, I just don't want us to be holding the bag if it's preventable, and it might not be preventable, but
right.
uh, so okay, we'll talk about that at our next meeting and go from there. So,
Right.
well, I thank you. Those were my disparate finance questions.
So then, do you want to give a quick update on the goals and priorities, Mike?
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. So, in addition to all the budget conversations, I know it's probably seems like a long time ago, Robin, but I don't think we've met since you held your office hours. So again, the board had originally targeted to do those monthly. So I think, if the board is on board, we can continue to try to do that. And then, I'll leave it to you when you want to reevaluate if you should move to every other or once a quarter or whatever you think appropriate. So Dave, I think you'd be up next, so we can coordinate with Chris, in terms of setting another date.
Yeah, exactly. And offer it until we start getting skunked and no one wants to show up.
Okay, perfect.
Right. The other thing is if nobody shows up, then maybe we go to every other month.
It's something like that. Yeah, we're all thinking along the same lines. Another thing is, since I don't have to worry about work, I can go in the morning or sometime, alternate the times. So
I
those,
think that would be a really good idea. Give it a morning slot, perhaps once in a while. Yeah.
so why don't we schedule that in when on my next one? Just go in the morning sometime.
Perfect. Okay.
And
That's
I
great.
wonder if we don't get a lot of people coming, maybe we could kind of attend maybe a COA coffee, a DMA meeting, just to make ourselves available and see if people have any questions there.
Yep, absolutely. If you can't get people to come to you, go to them,
You know,
right?
maybe we go to them.
Yep.
But
That's great.
being available to the citizens is obviously the goal here.
Right.
And we'll just mix it up and see, what avenues work.
Right.
Chris, you went to the COA. I know Mike's been there, but did you go to the COA as well?
I sure did. It's a great event. It's always very well attended. So I can't recommend it enough.
I couldn't agree more. I thought it was really well done, and it's just an opportunity for people to ask questions. And so if our office hours don't work, then I think it was Robin's suggestion that we throw COA on, and it's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Just a few other updates, with the exception of, I think, just a few minor glitches. Of course, one of which was one of our selectmen calling at the exact time our phones were switching over. Thanks to Chris, we had a successful switch over to a new phone system at the end of January. Everything's been working great. Feedback has been well received from staff. Our service has already improved, so it's been a win-win.
Right.
And especially because we're seeing ultimately we'll see a cost savings with this switch. So better service for less money, you can't lose there. So we appreciate Chris's work on that. Today was the due date for the aggregation RFP. And it's my understanding we got one response. All you need is one. So we've not reviewed it yet, but we'll start that process. But we're hopeful that response is appropriate and successful. And then we'd be really excited to start moving with the electrical aggregation process for the community. So we'll keep you updated as we go through that process. And then lastly, I just want to mention that we successfully, Chris submitted our grant for our permitting software. It was due last week. So now we're kind of waiting on pins and needles here for the response, which I think is due sometime in March. So we're eagerly awaiting that, but we feel like we had a very strong application. Just for the board's benefit, what we've done in addition to the grant application, we wanted to hopefully be in a position to be hitting the ground running if we are awarded the grant. So what we've done so far is Chris has led an internal group of staff users, both field-based, so inspectors, but admin as well, who would work in the office and interact with customers who'd be using the software. They've gone through a number of demos, and just by default, there was unanimous decision that there's one vendor that is far and away the preferred choice. So the next step is we're going to be looking to set up a demo that includes staff to see it a second time, but also the land use chairs. So they have an opportunity, the boards and committees can take a look and ask and think through things that maybe the staff didn't think of, and just make sure that the products that we're seeing, they concur that we think we found the best product for our community. So we'll be rolling that out hopefully soon. And then again, we'll find out about the grant in March, and hopefully we'll be in a good position to actually start running and to start to actually implement this pretty exciting program. So we'll keep you updated, and obviously the board will be invited as well. So.
And then,
Sounds. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, you can go ahead.
I was going to say, it sounds like you got the process down and you're being as inclusive as possible, which I know everyone will appreciate. And it'll also allow, I should ask this as a question, not a statement. Will the software that you're looking at allow aggregation on the back end of service providers who are not complying with the housing use rules and regulations?
Right. So all of that will be tracked. Yes. So it's what we put into the system, right? So if there's ability to note violations or inadequacies in applications and processes, and all users get to see every other department's comments. so everyone can track it and understand what's happening in real time and also historically as well.
Excellent. Excellent. We're going to be much better for it. Our citizens are going to have an easier process. Our staff members and committees on land use are going to have a defined process that will be easier. My understanding is that we can't dictate what boards people go to first, but we can make a suggestion. So we'll have to make that suggestion and have that all ready to go. So if I want to put in a pool, who do I need to see? Where do I start?
Right, right.
So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. And then we already talked about the rail trail and the press release.
Right. And I see that
Dave
went out.
stole the remote meeting piece. So I think that was it for me.
Okay, so that was the goals.
Oh, that was the goals, right? That's right.
Right.
The remote meeting was updates.
Right. This whole meeting has been one big update. So then 1.8 are the Board of Selectmen updates, and I really already gave my update because I wanted to give an update on warrant, and that was like the biggest update that I had to provide. So I don't know about you. Do you have anything, Dave?
The only thing is it's on the building committee. They met again on Monday night. We'll be meeting again. And there's still a lot of work to be done, both at the building committee level and on the building itself. Somewhere around early March, we're going to start getting some hard data on when the building can be reasonably expected to be finished. So that should be coming relatively soon. But Robin, you were in the walkthrough as well. It was the first time I've seen it. It is going to be a wonderful addition to the town and our citizens who want to use it. So
yeah. It's really a beautiful building and the space works really, really well. I would say at this point it's probably 85% complete, maybe 80% complete. There's still a lot of finishing work that needs to happen both inside and outside. But walking through there, you get a sense of the space and the building committee, the town staff have done an excellent job making sure that it's going to be comfortable and that every corner of the building is being properly utilized. It's going to be a great addition to the town.
So that was Monday, which means I couldn't go to the planning board. So I have no update there, although I know they're working very hard on everything that have already been mentioned, so I won't go through it again.
Right.
So.
All right, and then Mike, we'll move to 1.9. Do you have some additional updates that you want?
So just one more, which is really great news. So we first discussed this a year ago. I think it's been discussed for a while, but formally a year ago about the Center Street Bridge replacement project, which is going to result in $15 million in funding for the towns of Dover and Needham at no cost to us. And just very excited to announce that we just signed a contract you actually approved last January, but the money just came to fruition. We got a notice to proceed from the state for a $2.5 million design and engineering contract for that work. So that'll be starting now. So it's very, very exciting. I appreciate Kevin McCabe and his work on this. The bridge does span Dover and Needham, and he's been really pulling the work on this for both communities. So just really appreciate his efforts, but that's pretty exciting. And that $2.5 million includes $2 million for the project, and there was a 20% cost that, in theory, the town was supposed to chip in, but Kevin was able to get the Mass DOT to actually cover that additional 20% as well. So this really is no cost to the community other than Kevin's time and effort, which is certainly great, but no real dollars. So just wanted to announce that. Pretty exciting as that project starts to move forward. As a reminder, that's some ways down the way. I believe even the design and engineering isn't finished until 2030, I think. So this is not an overnight project, but it is underway. So that's exciting.
So people shouldn't be concerned right now of the bridge being closed for some period of time. There's still a lot of work
That
ahead,
is a ways away.
It'll be next decade, so.
but it will happen.
It will happen.
Yes. And so the design of that, is it all done by DOT, Mike, or do?
So DOT is providing the funding. They're part of the process, but it's an engineering company, TEC, who's actually doing the work.
Okay. I just was curious. We talked about the rail trail earlier. The biggest problem with connecting to Needham is the bridge. And from a safety standpoint, hoping the new Center Street Bridge has a pedestrian and or bike lane that as a default could carry or connect Needham to Dover for the rail trail, but also just, we all know how tight that current Center Street
Right,
Bridge is. And
that's what I was gonna say, just making it a little wider. If you get any kind of commercial vehicle going over it, it's, you wanna wait and let them go over.
I have slammed on the
Right.
brakes 2 or 3 times in the last year when a Tresca truck is coming the other way. You're like, whoa, there's no room for 2 of
Right.
us. So
Yeah.
no, the safety on that bridge, as beautiful a bridge as it is, it's got to be better, brought to a better state.
Exactly.
But again, my thought is just marrying rail trail, and even if we vote against rail trail and say no, we still need a safe way for pedestrians to get from Needham to Dover.
Right.
No,
Absolutely.
it would make sense to make, well, it definitely makes sense to make that a little wider than it is today.
Yeah, and I don't want to misspeak, but I believe all of the state and federal transportation projects do require pedestrian and bike access and lanes and things like that. So I believe we'll ensure that, but I believe it is part of the plan, whether you want it to or not. I think it's there.
On a very different note, I just looked up and saw that Jim Rapetti is in the waiting room, dude. And since our order's been out of order, do you at least want to bring him in and tell him where we are with the warrant articles?
Sure.
There we go. Hi, sorry I'm late.
Hey, Jim.
Better
Well,
late
guess what,
than
Jim?
never,
We
I
were
guess.
all late, so don't worry about it.
Okay. It's a busy time of year.
It
That's
is.
right.
So, Mike, do you just want to quickly summarize what you did for us?
Yeah, so Jim, you have a copy of the list. We sent it out for last week, but even though we're meeting this, it's the same list. And what I let the board know is I was hoping to have a definitive answer today, but I'm still working with Nina so that we can figure out how to, in the most simplest and effective way, handle all the various revolving funds. I believe you brought it up the last time we met and asked if we could make it a consent agenda. Nina did agree, as long as you were on board with that, we can do that. So she's just working through exactly how many items we'll need, but it's certainly possible that we'll do that as a consent agenda. So my plan with the board was to finish getting Nina's input, and then I would try to chat with you and Kate just to map out what Nina suggested and make sure that you two are on board with it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. It's
Absolutely.
going to be a busy night.
Yeah, well, we figured we could save between 20 and 30 minutes if you don't have to vote individually on all of those
Oh,
revolving.
yeah, right.
Because
Right,
just
right.
just
Right.
going through the process of voting.
Right.
Right. Even with the electronic voting, you're right.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. And we also talked about that there should be maybe a 1 minute or 2 minute explanation in front of the consent agenda, just reminding citizens that this really has no budget impact. It's funding for certain services, so the fees cover the expense. I think that's an important reminder.
That's a great idea, Robin. I agree. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
That will
it
save a
could
lot of
take
time.
more than a minute, right?
Right, right. Thank you. Well, again, I apologize for being late, but thank you.
No,
No
well, you
worries.
can thank Dave for noticing you in the as an
Attendee.
Oh,
That's right.
Well, Dave has been just such a good trooper. He's been in touch with me about the warrant, and we've been talking about, what we could put together in the consent agenda and what we couldn't. And so he's been a great help, and Michael also. So thank you. Thank you.
Our
excellent.
pleasure.
Thank you.
So you can put me back into the back row here.
You're right.
Put you back unless you want to be visible for the consent agenda.
All right. Well, have a good night, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
All right, so the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda, which consists of the following items. Acceptance of the Massachusetts Department of Fire Services Firefighter Safety Equipment Grant for $12,960 for the purchase of firefighter safety equipment. Acceptance of the Massachusetts Bureau of Forest Fire Control and Forestry Volunteer Fire Capacity Reimbursement Grant for up to $3,500 for training, prevention, and equipment purchases, and approval of the December 28th, 2023 and January 11th, 25th, and 2024 Board of Selectmen open meeting minutes.
You need a second?
Yep, so
Second.
let me move. I move to
Oh.
approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor, I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Dave Haviland.
All right. And then the next item of business is to let citizens know that the board will enter into executive session to prepare for strategy sessions with respect to collective bargaining for the Dover Police Association. And in accordance with that, I am going to make a motion to move that the board enter into executive session, not to return to open session, to prepare for the strategy sessions with respect to collective bargaining for the Dover Police Association. Further, as chair, I declare that an open meeting discussion may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the town. And a roll call vote is required here. So I think I need a second and then I'll do the vote.
Second.
All right, and all in favor, I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Dave Haviland.
All right, so that will conclude the open session portion of this meeting this evening.
Do you want, do we need to log on to a second meeting or can we
Yep.
just?
Yep. So you should have because this is a webinar, we can't prevent people from watching. So you should have a separate calendar invite. So Chris will end this meeting and then he'll reopen the private Zoom meeting.
And even with a late start, we're on time. So
That's
thank
right.
you. And
A
we
little
covered
dig,
a lot.
little dig.